Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha.
All right, well, here we are, 2025, Christmas Eve, December 24th. And the teaching in the area of the text that we're in is on this equalizing, exchanging self for others. And we've been introduced to that process. And now, as with really, what's really good about Tibetan Buddhist teachings is to examine, what's the benefit of a practice, what's the downside of not doing a practice, to really have us have a practical motivation to engage in a practice and not simply, here's what people do. And so as we bring up this particular quote here, let's see. There it is. The disadvantages of self-centeredness. This chronic disease of cherishing myself is the cause giving rise to my unsought suffering. Perceiving this, I seek your blessings. I seek your blessings to blame, begrudge, and destroy the monstrous demon of selfishness. First Panchen Lama. Pretty potent words there. Although it's fairly easy to understand that everyone equally wishes to be happy and to not suffer, our instinctive tendency is to feel that we are more important, that one's own needs and wishes take precedence over those of others. That attitude drives much of our behavior, pushing our way to the head of the line in a supermarket, making sure we get the biggest and the best, worrying incessantly about our own problems that are minuscule compared to those of others, manipulating others to achieve our own aims, and even causing harm to others. We may believe this attitude is necessary to survive and fulfill our needs, but in reality, it's the source of problems. As Shantideva wrote, whatever worldly suffering there is arises from wishing for your own happiness. In this meditation, we will look at why this is so. Yeah, there gets to be a lot of confusion around this. On one level, it's pretty clear. On another level, it's like we can go too far and totally misunderstand. We're supposed to take care of ourselves. We have a rare and precious human birth. This is, all the causes and conditions have ripened for us. And so this doesn't mean that. But it does hearken to, is there any mental, emotional affliction that you ever have in your life that isn't arising from, sort of this self-cherishing attitude in a way that we don't exist, and a thinking of things being so important to us one way or another. And in this process, starting to realize that the real source of our mental emotional struggles is this unhealthy self-cherishing, self-centeredness. I think more people, I'm starting to hear some lamas even translate it more as self-centeredness. Because it's good to have a healthy sense of self and to take care of ourselves. So the technical terms really around this self-centeredness, I'm a little more important than others. And as I was reading this, I was just thinking of, how frustrated we humans can be over an event in our lives. It could be a fairly small thing. It could be a big thing to us. But in comparison to others, I was reading they're minuscule. Like There's people right now who, are in a war zone. There's people, enduring horrific, prison time and difficulties. There's people being trafficked. You know, when you think about the problems of, the mass of humanity, people that don't have an education or, worrying about food tonight or, whether they'll be alive tomorrow or abusive environments and violence and hunger. And then we look at our problems. I mean, I don't even want to get in that whole thing with Laura and the dishwasher thing that she, you know, but, we can get frustrated over simple little things, line at the grocery store, traffic and then things that come up and the perspective of what we're seeing as wrong, inconvenient in our way, as opposed to just how much abundance we have. And yet, with all this abundance, the mind can be stressed, angry, frustrated, depressed with everything we have. And yet the mind will say, yeah, but if we had this other thing, things are just a little different. If I had just a little more cushion in my finances, if I had just this other thing, whatever it is, then yeah, then it'll be good. And that's the struggle here is that the suffering, the unsought suffering that Shanti Dev is talking about, it's arising from that desire, to get our needs met that are really not needs, confusing needs with greeds, you know. And that's tricky business, needs and greeds. And then sometimes we can't even enjoy like a nice thing because we think we're being selfish. And then uh, other times we're all obsessed about something that we absolutely do not need. And will provide us with, I don't know, an hour of happiness. And we just look at all the stuff we have, man. How much stuff you got in storage or in a closet or tucked away, you know. Uh, just this stuff that, is going to make our life better, happier, all good. And how many times in our lives have we just been really frustrated, angry, stressed, and, enraged, and we can't remember those times anymore, whatever it was I was so worked up about. How inconsiderate people were, what they did, or whatever. All this is arising from a, real center of the universe aspect of us being, you know, important and evaluating who we are based on how we stack up with others, what kind of life other people have, what they have that I don't, what they're good at that I'm not, or what I'm good at and they're not, or how considerate I am and they're so inconsiderate. Yeah. Love the aspect of judging people because they're judgmental. Yeah. Man, they're so judgmental. Can you believe that? Yeah. And so this gets to the root of it all. And when we can start to see, that difference, that, we are a part of something. I was reflecting the other day in a teaching. And one way of looking at this, it makes sense to me, is that we all have a purpose, right? We're all here for a reason, right? Nobody just rose out of nothing. There's a cause. We're here for a reason. There's an unfolding of things. And every difficulty in my life is because I'm unwilling to participate in my purpose. And I'm trying to get the world to fit what I think my purpose is, instead of paying attention to what is unfolding. All the life lessons, all the guidance, everything's there. It's all available. And everything there is to engage and to improve and to serve a purpose. And my challenge is I'm not really paying attention to that purpose. I start paying attention to, how I want things to be or how I think things should be or what I think I should do, instead of recognizing that I'm part of something that's unfolding and that how I exist, every aspect of my existence has been created through the efforts and karma and um, events and activities of countless others I've never even met, who engaged in practices and helped others, who've done harmful things, who've done helpful things. And that this thing's been unfolding in samsara that gave life to my great grandparents and grandparents and all the people and events that ever led up to the physical material thing that became John. And then John, is here because of a collection of karma and conditioning and imprints of the self and then that of others, and that I'm a part of something that's unfolding, and all I need to do is pay attention to what I'm supposed to do, like what's helpful, what's meaningful. How does one engage in what's unfolding in ways that allow you to see your purpose, understand your purpose, which, be recognizing your Buddha nature, right? Liberating yourself. It's all there. And all my challenges are, when I'm not so engaged in that listening, attending to, but grasping onto identity, self-centered sort of focus of what's unique and different about me instead of what's unfolding, that is all given rise to an opportunity to be helpful, to be kind, to learn, to understand, and to know yourself, which is quite the opposite of self-centeredness. Because the self-centeredness is grabbing onto the self that doesn't exist at all in the way that we protect. And therein lies the whole problem. Boy, Kurt's leaning into this, man. Are you waiting to say something? Okay. I thought you were leaning forward, ready to hit the mic.
Actually, I kind of am. When you said we're here for a purpose
Yeah.
or a reason, we're here for a reason. That sounds like something predestined. That sounds like there's some mysterious destiny out in front of me that I need to figure out what it is. It's and I
It's pretty crazy.
sounds Calvinist, right? And so it's like, but I think maybe how I'm understanding what you're saying is that we're here because of causes and conditions. Causes and conditions have created this, whatever you're looking at, right? And then the reason going forward is the path, right? Ethical behavior. Is that getting close? Or is there some predestined reason out there that I haven't figured out yet that I'm supposed to?
Not as much as much as to know yourself. That's the purpose, right? To directly realize your Buddha nature, your ultimate nature, how you exist, primordial wisdom.
Right.
And
Not easy.
and we're here, like I said, causes and conditions, right? We're here because, and there's a wide range of things unfolding for us to have that opportunity. And the purpose is to, yeah, when you think about, I always keep coming back. Like I've had just the whole beehive thing in my head. Um, but if you watch nature shows of any sort of what birds do and what any type of animal does and how they know to do certain things at certain times and how they've adapted to what life has evolved, there's an understanding, of what to do. Um, and likewise, we have an unfolding, and the challenges, we get caught up in wanting to shape the world in a way that suits us rather than us serve our role in the unfolding of this conditioning and ripening and our ability to help others and to know ourselves. And given the circumstances, knowing that your innate primordial wisdom is always there and can guide if we listen. Can't guide very much if I'm not listening, if I don't make the space to listen. So, yeah, it's not predestined. The Buddhism is, there's way too much fluctuation. Karma is ripening, changing moment to moment. So, but there is some sort of predestination that things will say when a certain teacher may come into fruition who come and be available, and certain things that karma can line up, and we wind up meeting the just this person at that time in our lives. Or I mean, you just start to think about all the things that have happened to get you where you are, and many of them are things that had happened centuries ago. And some yogi in a cave that you never met who's doing some things that allowed you to have the life you have now and see it here. And that's quite interesting when you start realizing that how we exist, it's really been also created by others. That we're an answer to their prayers. I love that thought process. We're the answer to their prayers and their dedication and their efforts. They have given rise for the opportunity to be here on a Christmas Eve, seeking to be compassionate, to engage in life in ways that are meaningful, with teachings that have been passed down, translated, and made available, and our minds have been ripened to it. That's pretty phenomenal. Until I get all independent and forget that I'm just arising moment to moment based on all these things. And simple thing, purpose is to be helpful and be kind, and understand our interdependence and understand ourselves, and ultimately, at some point, know who you are. And it's not the name on the driver's license. And then all the other issues are deviating from that. How can I be helpful is a pretty good guide. Pretty good guide. Short version of the St. Francis prayer there. That was nice. We closed out with that the other night. Yeah. Kondro Rinpoche, yeah, that was her talk that one time. Is that we have all these teachings because we don't know how to be kind to each other. Yeah, if we just knew how to be kind to each other, we wouldn't need all these teachings to figure out how to be kind to each other. We have to go this whole thing about equanimity, that we have to recognize that other people want their happiness just like I want their happiness, and that person's not really a jerk, they're just acting like a jerk, and I need to learn that, and and then I have to understand their suffering, and I need to go through all this stuff because and then they get to a point, and then I need other teachings because then I'm got anger and hatred towards whoever and all that, and it's all this stuff because we just don't know how to be kind to each other. We don't know how to care for each other, and so that's a pretty good purpose to be helpful, right? To alleviate suffering, to learn the lessons that are being offered. To learn the lessons that are being offered. There's, some of I do when I'm able, try to record a daily quote, on a little YouTube channel thing, the daily quote. And from a meeting this morning, the quote really came about attending to each other carefully, like Terry had mentioned, carefully. Thinking about the gifts and what we did is if we care fully, we care for others fully, we care fully, attend to people, care fully, think about what we're giving. Are we giving with care fully or not? I really like that, And what would it be like if I attended with care fully to whatever I'm doing? Earlier today I was doing the bookkeeping for the Way of Compassion. And, it could be a whole things I have to type into, or I can recognize the value of people's donations and what a gift it is and type their name in with some care. And that makes it a lot different than a whole bunch of bookkeeping I have to do. Very ripe, right? When we attend to it with care, fully attending. And so, by the way, thank all of you. I hope you have received our thank yous and our appreciation. And we collectively create these conditions that we're able to be here. Yeah. All right, Holly.
Good evening, everybody. Earlier today, I was reading from the script from the Self-Doctrine and was feeling a little sorry for myself. So I thought, I'll go get myself a little eggnog latte. That'll cheer me up. So I go into the coffee shop and I'm standing there planning and grasping and thinking, oh boy, I can't wait. This is going to make me feel so good. And standing in front of me was a UPS driver. And I immediately started thinking, oh my God, this poor man, he's been running around for weeks, delivering everybody's packages. I need to buy him lunch or coffee or whatever he wants. I don't care. So we get up to the register and he puts his order in, and I walked up and said, I'd like to buy this gentleman a treat and a coffee, and he was flabbergasted. He was just like, wow, what's your name? Where do you live? I'm going to talk to the UPS guy and make sure your packages get delivered. It was really sweet. But I also experienced that letting go of the self in that moment, where there was a softening, there was a melting, there was a conscious setting aside of Holly and what will make her happy right now. And it just, I think sometimes this letting go process is volitional, and it kind of happens naturally if you're just aware and conscious of what's happening right in front of you. These opportunities present themselves all day long, but I have to be awake enough to participate. So I don't know if that adds anything or deletes anything, but I just thought I would share that. Thank you.
I think, yeah, it's wonderful. It's exactly what we're talking about. You attended with care fully to your environment and the needs of people around you, and the gratitude that arose, seeing that. Yeah, that's beautiful. It's wonderful. And I thought my coffee story was pretty good. That one's way better. Christmas Eve, so, we have an employee, Grayson, and Laura wanted to make sure today, just a half day, that we get her the kind of latte she likes, and, go out and get a treat and, and have that for her. So she sent me there. So I go in and, I've got her order, right? Oat milk latte with vanilla, flavor in there. Ooh, I remembered, right? So I'm getting that. I'm getting Laura's order and, mine. And then this guy put out these beautiful pastries just as I'm arriving. So I took that as a sign from God that we should get pastries. And, so I got 3 big pastries, which may not have been attending quite with the same generosity that you had. Uh, but I was like, oh yeah, he's putting those look great. Wow. Showed up at the right time. Karma has ripened. And yeah. Hey, Keith.
Well, that was a good story. With the comment that's been floating around in my mind, being kind and helpful in and of itself is not that difficult at all for me. I mean, it's pretty easy to say a kind word or do something helpful for someone, some simple thing, or even not so simple. The trick, which is what gets what this section is talking about in the reading, and I think is hinted at in your little story there, is showing up in an orientation of what can I give to others here versus what can I get for my own pleasure, my own comfort, to fulfill my own needs, wants, wishes. And so that's where the mindfulness really comes in for me, is remembering I have to very intentionally and deliberately orient my mind outward towards others and what can I give versus my default mode of, what's in it for Keith and, to make my life or me, as comfortable as possible. And I've made progress with this practice, and it's a challenge. It's really easy for me to get caught up in my own head and my own self-centeredness. I guess that's what it's, coming down to, that's the conditioned orientation. And so it's learning to buck that and shift that gear, do the 180.
Oh, thank you. That shift from me-centered to we-centered. And that's just much easier to be thinking about how to be helpful. And then the other side of that coin is we still need to take care of ourselves, right? And then sometimes, as so wonderfully illustrated by Holly, is taking care of others took care of yourself, right? So that's like a really wonderful gift to ourselves, and that's what His Holiness says is being um, wisely selfish. When we attend to others, we benefit in such a way, and it's attending to others that we benefit. And then, but then sometimes we can deprive ourselves of things um, that isn't very healthy and can be very attached to, um, how ascetic we can be in our lives. And instead of, recognizing, we need a day off, we need to breathe in, we need a break, we need to have those pastries that they just put out for you. I mean, I was willing to do my part. And so, that give and take, that when good things arise, to engage with them with gratitude and care as well. And then we're more capable of attending to others, as we're more whole and healthy and balanced. Because when we think about being a benefit to all sentient beings, you are a sentient being. And sometimes we forget that, all others. And so that's this, the middle way, this beautiful path of recognizing, and I think the key here is around needs and greeds. What is helpful and flourishing. And sometimes, like, here's an example, just, Christmas. So, Laura and I live a pretty simple life, and we're like, don't really need much, but she's been painting lately. She's pretty talented, just her self-taught. She's doing pretty good. And, but she's got these like Walmart paint brushes, for sometimes the actual the thing comes off in the paint. And, with $10 or whatever, got a set. And, she's been, wanting some nicer brushes. And so, I want for Christmas, give her some nice brushes. And so the place was going to close the day before we could get there. So, but she could get there. So I just gave her a credit card and she said, go get the brushes you need, And, I told her, keep it under a certain amount. She goes in there bargain shopping again. You know what I mean? Like, there's the really high-end brushes and there's this and it was, you could see and she got some decent brushes for herself, right? Spent about half of what I told her she could. And, because, well, I don't really need this. I don't really need, and, and then, and she did. She wound up with some nice brushes, really thoughtful process, and she got what she needed, except one brush. But she's spending 10 minutes explaining to me about how expensive these things are and where I think I should get this and all that. And where I'm glad she could give herself the gift of doing that. And it was an effort for her to just allow herself to buy some good brushes as a gift. And she did it though. It was good. She came up with some pretty good stuff. But can you recognize that in your own life sometimes? To give yourself something and have to do this whole process. And nobody's going to mention that this came up, right? So, uh, but she's, she cares deeply for others, and she's pretty frugal. And so, the balance of, using this rare and precious human birth in a way that's meaningful and nourishing for us so we can nourish others. And having a balance with that is, really really important and an incredible skill to be cultivated over a long period of time. We're gonna swing one way and the other a lot. Uh, Kimberly.
Hi, everyone. It's so good to be here this evening and here with you. Well, I got to experience something beautiful and consistent to what we're talking about. I have said my son volunteers at a homeless shelter, and it was great. It's great. And I decided I'm going to go volunteer. And so I went today. I was scheduled from 10 to noon. Didn't know where I was going, one-way streets. And it was it was such interesting because I'm driving and I'm like, wow, these people, everybody who's working here, that's, yeah. I mean, maybe I can work here on the side or, and so I just went where the door was, the only door that I saw where people were lined up and to get food, and walked in, and people were sort of looking at me. Did you come in that way? This is where Blair County. I was like, yeah. She goes, oh, you were supposed to use, that door. And so that was the interesting thing that happened, and boy, I went in the kitchen. I was helping put food, their ham dinners for lunch. And it was like I shed something going in the kitchen and getting assigned to where I was to work. And today felt like a gift. That was just nobody knowing me and just being there and serving people who need food. So all that ramble to say that thank you. It's a gift to serve others.
Thank you for your service. Okay. Another side effect of living with this recognition of we, in the way I think of purpose anyway, is a lot more confidence. You don't have to have lack of self-esteem if you know you're part of something that's unfolding and you've got something to do and you're here for a reason. It just cuts through a lot of comparison. It cuts through a lot of, worry or fear. It's like, yeah, what's unfolding is what I'm supposed to attend to, and I'm here to attend to it carefully as best I can. And then there's a confidence, it helps guide through times of uncertainty and insecurity. And oh, wait a minute, you start noticing those feelings. Go, well, yeah, but I'm here because my GPS is set, for merit and wisdom. That's what I'm here for. I don't need to, have all these other things. And I was thinking about that, and I was listening to some of Jet Sumaten's bunches some years ago, talk, and yeah, she used the word GPS. I'd never heard her, say, because we use that in our mindfulness program. You kind of set your GPS. And she used that analogy and said, yeah, well, you wake up every day and you set your GPS on, headed towards enlightenment. And then you don't have to keep thinking about it. That's where I'm going. And you just let go of all that and see, where the path falls, but you keep redirecting back to that. And that path is simply merit and wisdom. And you keep adjusting. But you set it and then you let go of what you think you need to do to get there. And start, engaging with that direction. And then, life's just so much simpler that way. Whatever's popping up, there's traffic, there's an accident, there's this thing that's happening. Those are all things to get us where we need to go instead of obstacles or things in our way. They are the way. And, and then there's a lot of confidence that, well, we're here to deal with this instead of this is my way to deal with the things I think I need to deal with. And so that shift to that interdependence and understanding, that everything that's happening is providing us the opportunity to engage in our life carefully, fully with care. Well, then really things are just simpler and the emotions, the afflictions, much softer, and so that's, recognizing that the more I'm self-centered and self-grasping, the harder those emotions are, the bigger the reactions. And then the stronger sense of self, as a matter of fact, one does do vipassana meditation on trying to identify the self, they usually have you bring up a strong emotion, then there's a real sense of I there, and you go, okay, let's look at that I. And so it's kind of a method. But when we don't get caught up in that, you're not going to have that big, deep grasping that gives anger, depression, jealousy, those deeply afflictive states. They soften. There's more confidence that you're capable and here for a reason. It may go sideways quick. And I may not feel up to it, but somewhere I know I am, even though I don't feel like it. There's a stability there. And that's where these practices of, understanding equanimity and how we exist, where the afflictions really arise is, just this deep, heartfelt grasping on ourselves in a very independent, self-centered way. And as that softens, we just get so much more healthier mentally, emotionally, and more capable of being resilient, responding, engaging in our lives. All right. Well, any other thoughts? Oh, Keith, yeah. How's
Really
that?
is. It really is such a beautiful way to live, I find. And, just reflecting as during this talk tonight, I am a lot more oriented than I used to be towards finding opportunities to be there for someone else and to help. And believe it or not, I was playing pickleball this afternoon. And
Really?
yeah, it's weird, but I
Okay.
did.
Yeah.
Weird.
And so there's this young man that we've known now for quite a few months who comes and, plays in the groups. He's probably, I don't know, in his 20s, would you
Late,
say?
early 30s, probably.
Maybe like 30, early 30s. And he's clearly on the spectrum. And it's pretty clear he doesn't really have other friends. He's definitely got some social skill deficits. And he's a wonderful kid. You know, in my 60s, a 30-year-old is a kid at this point. Uh, and so we've, all the older people that play and everything have just kind of taken him in. And he plays with us, and he's very good. He's an excellent pickleball player. And I remember in the beginning, I was a little bit judgmental of him and some negativity towards him, but I caught that, and I've since opened my heart towards him and just made it a point to say hi to him and to compliment him and to just sort of be there for him. And I've noticed over recent weeks has been just warming up to me more and more. Played he played today. I got to play with him, and afterwards he opened up to me. I'm gonna cry. Ugh. His dad is really sick, and he's been traveling an hour and a half up to Coeur d'Alene to see his dad in the hospital for weeks now, through extremely serious illness. And he just started talking to me about it after pickleball today and shared what was going on, and that he had to make a decision today. He was heading up to Coeur d'Alene again after pickleball to make the decision about whether to put a feeding tube in his. He's a power of attorney, and he is in the position of making this decision. And he's really just felt so burdened and sad and weighted down by it. And I got to be there for him. And we talked for like a half an hour in the parking lot. And I was able to be there for him and offer some suggestions and exchange phone numbers. And he was heading up to Coeur d'Alene, but I think in a little bit better space than he was before we were able to visit. And this to me is the beauty of living this practice.
Yeah, it's beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you, Keith. Thank you. Yeah, we have the honor of being there for people.
And we get to be his friend. That's another thing with this equanimity. It just tears down all these artificial boundaries of socioeconomics and gender and who's on the spectrum or isn't on the spectrum or age or, you name it. And it's everybody's on the same equal playing field. I love him just as much as, really anybody else in my life. I can say that and mean it. And that's the transformation in action.
Yeah, beautiful example of it. Beautiful. And that's our foundation. If we can keep working with this equanimity, keep recognizing that everybody's got their struggles, their worries, their fears. We all have this common disease of samsara. And we've been able to get a little more treatment than some others have for this disease. And that puts us in a better position to engage with others who are more acutely affected by it in the moments now. And for me, that's a lens that just helps me. It's just thinking of it in that way. And, and the gratitude that comes with the fact that somebody would actually reach out to any of us because they're struggling. Like, what a thing to be grateful for someone that someone would actually call for help. And that was not always the case in my life. and that we have something to offer. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's a good reflection for this Christmas Eve and the current environment of the samsaric world we're living in the moment. Really helpful, really inspiring. My heart's full. Or as Dusty would say with his kid, my bucket's full. And your bucket full. Yeah. Hey, Katie.
Hello. It's really great to be here. Thank you, John, and everyone. Uh, I'm just adding now to this theme because the last course that I worked in the mountains, two of the most challenging, well, they were the two most challenging students. Um, both of them this week. So this was like the course ended in mid-October, but both of them reached out to me separately to one actually to express his gratitude, and the other for support and help in her experience right now. And just that, like, yeah, some of the same pieces that you're sharing, Keith, where it's like, wow, I've worked, thanks to these teachings, really hard to show up with impartiality in the field and really care for people, and also really hold up a mirror for them and not like sugarcoat things. And with the student that reached out today, I gave her really good, loving, clear feedback. And so it's really, really sweet to see that trust was built and she's in a hard place in her life and reached out for support. So yeah, I'm also grateful to keep learning.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. All right. Well, I think it's a good place to pause. I want to pick this up, the next teaching that we have with Alice. I like to always have a context for dedication. So as I formally take it, I just take a moment to recognize the value of what we've just engaged in. All the things going on this evening, to gather in an intimate community of people opening up their hearts, cultivating understanding, love, compassion, and care for oneself and others, seeking to be of benefit, to understand, to be helpful, to be kind. The world needs this so bad. What a gift it is we are gathering to offer it, to learn and to grow ourselves so we can give it even better. And with that merited wisdom, let us dedicate any and all merited wisdom throughout our lives for the benefit of others. May all of our efforts collectively find their way into the world, creating the conditions to reduce suffering, to cultivate understanding, and for our own continued spiritual growth, that we may continue to grow in our ability to recognize our Buddha nature, to learn to listen to lessons that come our way, and to be able to be as helpful as we can to ourselves and others. And with that, those who care to can do the formal dedication. By this merit may I soon attain the enlightened state of Guru Buddha, that I may be able to liberate all sentient beings from their sufferings. May the precious Bodhi mind, not yet born, arise and grow. May that born have no decline, but increase forevermore.
Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare